Hi everyone, Keen in the North here. Thank you so much for choosing to tune in to the first episode of the Grand podcast. I hope you have a good time. Just wanted to let you know before it gets started, there have been a couple of teething issues with this first episode. Notably, my audio quality is a little up and down. My guest sounds perfectly fine, but my volume is a little strange here and there, so just be on the lookout for that. I will be investing into my audio setup, and this should be sorted in time for the next episode, whenever that will be. But other than that, please sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Grand Podcast, the best place to get really angry about nerd discourse. I am the Keen in the North. You can call me Keen or Kin, I don't mind. And for the first episode of this podcast, I am joined by an absolutely incredible creative force. She is the author of the Clockwork God Chronicles, creator of one of the most popular Game of Thrones fanfictions on the internet, A Wolf Amongst Lions, and its sequel story, A Pride of Wolves, and one of the few souls brave enough to actually read the comments. You may know her as Kallypso, but I know her as the unparalleled Aimee Hyndman. Hello, Aimee.
Hi, thank you so much for that lovely intro.
Thank you for being here. I've been looking forward to the opportunity to gush more about how awesome you are, and this is a absolutely fantastic opportunity to do so. I've got to say, your fan fiction, I'm not sure if I actually mentioned this, is one of the reasons that I'm married. Um,
What?
I yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah, right now.
one of my close friends is helped me get into a Discord server just through like mutual connections that I ended up moderating, and that Discord server is where I first met my wife.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that friend, one of the things that we bonded over was Game of Thrones, and by extension, A Wolf Amongst Lions. She sent me the link, and I absolutely fell in love. So thanks for that. That's very helpful of you.
Yeah, and that was my intent the whole time. I was hoping that I
Fantastic.
could do that. That's awesome.
Incredible. So, getting right into it, as I said, you are the author of one of the most popular Game of Thrones fan fictions on AO3, A Wolf Amongst Lions. What is it that first drew you to writing about Tywin and Arya as a pairing?
Gosh. It's funny, you mentioned that I wrote the Clockwork God Chronicles, which, is a now kind of they're no longer in print, fantasy series because I published them when I was in college and the publisher went under, a lot of stuff with that. But, kind of right in the wake of my, pulling out of that book deal, losing I parted ways with my agent. I was feeling extremely like lack of confidence, we'll say, in my writing. I was feeling very disillusioned by a lot of my original writing and everything. And so I think I was drawn back to, I want to write fan fiction again, because fan fiction is very like low stakes and it's just me and I can post whenever I want. And there's very immediate feedback as well, which is very helpful. And it just so happened that Game of Thrones season 7 was just ending. And that also left me in like the over year wait before I was going to get to season 8, uh, which obviously ended up paying off so well for all of us. And we were really excited with how that turned out. Um, but I got so hyperfixated on Game of Thrones, like deep hyperfixated, where I was just like consuming, I was on Tumblr all of the time. I was rewatching stuff. I was just all the information that I could. And for some reason, the Arya Tywin scenes made me crazy. It really
Mm.
made me crazy. I was struck with illness, just watching them. I don't, I was so mentally ill about them. And because I was just so obsessed with the nuance of the dynamic and how much it added to like with both of those characters where they were at that time. So I was just like, all right, I want to write some scenes with them. That's it. I want to just write a continuation of what would happen if Tywin found out that Arya was there. And truly in my mind, I was like, this is just going to be like a 10 chapter, 12 chapter fic. Yeah.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah, and that was really ambitious of me to think that. I've never been short-winded in my life. I've never written short things in my life. The thing is when I started writing them, there was so much to explore with that dynamic that plots just kept on creating themselves and it kept expanding and expanding and expanding until it became the 108 chapter monstrosity that we see today. Um, I love complicated adoptive parent-child dynamics. Obsessed with them. I love
Uh,
it when neither the child nor the parent wants this to be happening. That's really
Oh.
exciting for me on on a writing level. I write it in my original fiction. I write it in every fandom that I can. And they are just a very fascinating dynamic and have the potential to be a very fascinating dynamic. And I'm still obsessed with them. I rewatched their scenes recently and I was deeply unwell the entire time. So it was great. It was awesome for me.
Honestly, yeah, they are, in my opinion, the standout scenes of that season.
They're so
Obviously,
good.
that's not how it went down in the books. They are
No.
very like it's all Roose Bolton there, which, as
Yeah.
someone who watched the show first, that kind of shocked me because they
Yeah.
felt so Gurmy in style, and it felt like something he would write.
Yeah.
So the fact that that
100%.
was a show original is was really fantastic, and yeah, the dynamic between the two of them is just, oh, it's brilliant. I would prefer to keep it consistent that Tywin never smile, but I do love the idea of this random precocious child being the one that's able to make him involuntarily chuckle. That was always really
Yes, absolutely. And I think too is that Charles Dance plays it in a wonderful way. The laughing, even though it is laughing, it's laughing in the way that you can tell it's someone who almost never laughs. It's just like it's like a
Yes,
bark of a
it feels like he's fighting against it.
yes, it's great. Charles Dance really lends so much charisma to Tywin that Tywin does not have in the books. Let's be so clear. Tywin is not in the
Absolutely.
script.
I
And
mean,
I
that's
do
the basis of my career on social media, that Tywin's a bitch, so I appreciate the fire on that one.
because I also started with I started with the show as well. I really I think I don't think I actually maybe read the books until the giant gap in between season 7 and season 8 when I was fine because again I was so hyper fixated. I was like I'll do anything. I'd always meant to read them, but it's like I just hadn't gotten around to it. So I started with the show. So I had a certain concept of Tywin based on Charles Dance's portrayal, which is just has so much like charisma and power to it, and a little bit more complexity. It's not that Tywin in the books is not complex because I think he is. He's just he has less likable about him in that complexity. He's got obviously a lot of additional things about him. So I still like picture Charles Dance when I read the books, but people will ask me, it's like, is your version of Tywin more based off of the books and the show? It's like the show, 100% the show. I almost don't take the books into my account of how I hear him at all. Because yeah, they're based off show only scenes. So
Yeah, for me, I like I said before, I did start with the show, but then my second experience and my most common experience with the series is through the audiobooks.
mm,
Because when I was first getting into them, I was like driving a lot while I was being driven a
yeah,
lot. Um, and we were listening to the audiobooks, and Roy Dotrice there makes a really interesting decision, which is to have Tywin sound like Winston Churchill. Which, if you read into the history of Winston Churchill, is
mhm,
such a clever comparison because they are
yeah.
really similar in actions.
That's so funny. That's no, that's a great call. And yeah, that's great. I love that choice. I never listened to the audiobooks. So I only got into audiobooks very recently. And again, it was ADHD thing. It's very hard for me to listen to something without clocking out. So I usually have to be like, you know, doing chores or driving or something like that to be listening to them.
Yeah, I feel that. Like I say, driving was where I got through most of it. In a bit of a confession thing, I've only actually physically read The Song of Ice and Fire once. And I've gone through the Duncan Egg novella twice.
Yeah.
But I've gone through it
Mhm.
probably 12 times so far
Yeah. So
because
you've
there was a
gone.
period of my life I've there was a period in my life during COVID where I was working a job where I could listen to stuff. It was a night shift, it was hell, but I got to listen to books, and
Yeah.
I went through the entire series in 2 weeks, six
Wow.
times over while I was in that job.
Ooh.
So that's
Yeah.
where this all comes from.
Where it all comes from. Yeah.
Um,
I confess, yeah, I have not I've only read it physical copy one time. I've watched the first 4 seasons of the show a lot. A lot, a lot, a lot. And I've spent a whole lot of time. I've read all of the world books and the source books. That's the other thing that I've done a lot of, and I've spent a lot of time on the Song of Ice and Fire wiki, which God bless. I love. It's always there for me. Every single time I have to look up a detail for my fan fiction, it always has the answer for me. That's great.
Thank God for the Wiki of Ice and Fire. Wiki of Westeros, get out of here.
Absolutely. Always, we know the superior one.
I mean, that's always bothered me, just as a random tangent, because the Star Wars wiki does this really well, because they've got
Yeah.
canon and legends there, and there's a lot of crossover. But if you go to a page for a certain character, they've got a thing at the top you can toggle if you want to see canon or legends. I feel like they should do that for books and show.
I think so too, because the Wiki of Westeros, the show only one is like it's also just way worse formatted in general. Like the Song of Ice and Fire wiki is really done in a way where it's like the information is organized extremely well and it's very easy to read. And I do not find that the case with the show wiki as much. It's much more. I don't know. It's something about the website design, honestly, that's just like it's harder to read.
It looks like there's too much going on,
Yeah.
whereas Ice and Fire feels very much like info focused.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
But yes, speaking of Ice and Fire, our wonderful author of that gum famously describes himself as a gardener author, that his characters grow in ways he didn't expect, and they often surprise him with the decisions they make. Do you find similar when you're writing in general, or did you find similar while you were writing Wolf Amongst Lions, or did you have a pretty solid idea of where things were going from the beginning?
I call myself more of an architect in general, but I have gardening tendencies when I'm actually in the writing process. So I've talked a lot about on my TikTok the outlining process. And I think where a lot of people kind of balk at the idea of an outline is they're like, well, then I've already told myself the story and there's no point in writing it. So I lose motivation because I've like already planned everything out. So there's nothing exciting anymore. There's no discovery. But I'm always willing to change an outline, always. And usually I expand an outline a lot more than I do like when I first am planning stuff out. Again, I thought that A Wolf Amongst Lions was going to be 12 chapters. As we know, it ended up being longer than that by a fair
Ever so
bit.
slightly. Only a bit.
Just like a slight bit. So I always like to know the ending. The ending, I think, and knowing the ending is very important to me because I think that you have to be able to earn your ending when you're writing. And the better you know where you're going, the more that you can pace it, the more that you can like track your character arcs, all of that good stuff to get to an ending that is, really memorable or really suits the story. And
So
I'm not a
you
big fan.
didn't consider the possibility of like rushing the ending so you could fuck off and go to a Star
No,
Wars?
no, I didn't. I did not have a deal with Star Wars at the time. Maybe if I had, I would, I would have just sped on through.
Good thought,
Um,
maybe.
oh my God. And it's the problem too. It's I don't like a shock value ending, right? I don't like an ending, an ending being unexpected just to be unexpected, I think is terrible, right? Like I would much rather a predictable ending that feels really earned by the narrative than something that's like shocking and seems to come out of nowhere. Um, so yeah, so obviously I have my feelings on season 8. But but so it's like I'll outline a lot, I'll plan a lot. But I always am open to discover stuff while I'm writing, where it's like I'll be in the writing process and I'll realize I'm like, I think I have to do something like this. I need to have more here. And so I'll never be too rigid with my outline because there are plots in A Wolf Amongst Lions and arcs that came very last minute where I suddenly realized that I had to do something with this particular character or this particular setting. It's not great when I come up with that last minute because I was updating twice a week. So it's very much like laying train tracks in front of me as the train is coming. But I manage sometimes. I'm not a slow gardener. When I have to garden, I plant very fast, basically.
that fertilizer down. It's interesting that you mentioned things changing last minute. Has that ever happened to you because of a comment that you received? Because I remember when I used to write fan fiction for an IP that will not be mentioned by name. I had one instance where someone left a comment that was so interesting that my mind fixated on it for like a week, and by the time I came to put my fingers on the keypad for the next chapter, my entire plan had changed.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't say they've ever changed a huge thing. However, I have multiple times had comments mention like being excited to see like it's like, oh, I'm excited to see when this character is going to come back in, and I'll go, right, that character. I forgot about them. And just fully they'll slip my mind. There's a lot of characters in Game of Thrones. I don't know if you noticed this. There's a fair number to keep track of.
How many Johns are there? Is it like 37 at this point?
There's so many. There's so many. And I honestly, for my take, it's like I keep a pretty condensed cast, I feel, for a Game of Thrones thing. Just because especially in A Wolf Amongst Lions, I only dealt with characters that actually interested me. If they're interesting to me to be in the story, I'll have them, and if not, they're off screen. That's none of my business. That I don't want to deal with them. It was mostly from Arya's point of view, and also some like obviously from like the Lannisters and that kind of thing. So I didn't have to do the thing like with George R.R. Martin where he's literally got a POV in every single point of Westeros. That was not the kind of thing I was trying to do. But I will get comments that'll be like, sometimes it'll be a commenter pointing something out that they noticed. They're like, oh, it's really cool how this is there and you set that up. And I'll be like, yeah, yes, I did. I totally did. And I see why you read that. And I'm going to do something with that now because I now realize that I did that accidentally. But they've never fully changed my plot. I think the main thing was like sometimes I'll realize I'm like, people are expecting this character to get a little bit more of a defined ending. So I need to figure out where they end up by the end of this so that people are at least satisfied that I remembered them, that kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's probably one of the strongest advantage of the media is, like you said before, that almost instant feedback. You don't have to wait for tweets after publishing to know what people liked and disliked. People will tell you within 5 minutes of the chapter going live, oh, I like this. You need to remember about that. And also, obviously, number go up. And that's great.
I love it when the numbers go up. I shouldn't be as obsessed with the numbers as I am, but if we take into account that I got back into fan fiction after kind of a bad experience with publishing, feels really good to have definable statistics to measure people's enjoyment of something. That's really, really helpful. So it's like I do an archive of our own, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you think about it, has the ability for you to sort fics by kudos, hits, comments, and bookmarks. So you can compare yourself to everyone around you. And I do constantly. It is one of those things where it's like I would do that a lot. And now I don't have to do as much because obviously I rank pretty highly in the fandom. So I feel pretty confident about that.
As you should. Let's take a second with that one, as you absolutely should.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But it's like I don't have to check them now for like a confidence boost. If anything, I just check them to be like, have I conquered the fics that are still ahead of me? Kind of thing. Because I'm like, I might one day. I'm not upset there are people ahead of me, but I like to know if it happens and if I advance. I'm very happy with the one A Song of Ice or the one Game of Thrones fic that's beating me in the rankings because I think the premise is the wildest thing that I've ever heard in my life.
If I recall correctly, that's Down the Rabbit Hole to Westeros, right?
Yeah. I've never read it.
Can't
say it enough. I've never read it.
It's so fun. There's it's got my favorite example of like pretty much anything comedic in fan fiction, which is Stannis Baratheon shit talk Gary and Lannister for being a bad lay.
Oh my god, that's crazy. Crazy work for Stannis.
Yeah.
Crazy work from Stannis. I mean, crazy work from Solis for getting Stannis that good at it, but also that confident enough in his own abilities.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's a wild one. I was actually about to ask, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you brought them up. Do you ever snoop on your quote unquote competition? Do you ever take a look through the folks that are around you? Just not even just to like compare
Yeah.
yourself, but just to see what it is that's popular.
Yeah, I never actually read them because it's like I don't read a lot of Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire fan fiction, and that's simply because if I'm writing it, I have to keep my versions of the characters very separate from anybody else's versions of the characters. So like occasionally it's like I'll read like fics sometimes if they are extremely different from the fics I'm doing. Like I obviously used to read like a lot of Brienne and Jaime fan fiction because that's honestly my ultimate ship in Game of Thrones. I'm obsessed with them. So I read a lot of that because I wasn't writing it, and so it wasn't really conflicting with my writing. But I do like to look at the premises of the fics around me because I am very fascinated with what gets popular. And the reason why I'm very delighted at the fic that is ahead of me in kudos, being that like somebody gets isekai'd into Silas Baratheon is like it's such a niche premise. I love how niche that premise is. It is not like a super popular pairing or super popular like character concept even. It's just like it so clearly was like I'm like I know that this was just a little passion project in your brain and you did not expect it to get as popular as it did because that's how it is for me in A Wolf Amongst Lions too because I was like this is not I'm not writing with any of the popular pairings in this. It's a platonic dynamic is at the center of it. Romance is not the center thing. And I think a lot of people do read fan fiction for romance. That's just, in general, I think. And there were so few fics written with them at the time that I started writing. There was like maybe two pages of Archive of Our Own had fics where they were like a centralized dynamic. So I'm pleased whenever I see fics that have kind of a weird premise getting a lot of hits because I think that it has the whole idea of write what you want. Don't write something because it's popular. Write something that you care a lot about and people will come. They will come and they will read it and they will be able to feel how much you care about this particular concept.
Yeah, people can definitely feel the passion for it. And I have read things that I did not expect to enjoy just because I got sucked into it. I've
Yeah.
also written that. Like I was talking about the one that I've done before. It was IP that shall not be named, matched up with Doctor Strange, who was
Amazing.
even when this film was coming out, he was pretty niche.
Yeah.
And like people were reading it and people were enjoying it just because I fucking loved the character. I loved
Yeah.
Benedict Cumberbatch at the time. I love Wong. I loved the whole setup of the mystic arts, and I loved getting to expand on that and explore it. And I
Yeah.
guess other people did as well. Don't go looking, by the way, anyone who's watching this, that has been scrubbed for moral reasons. Um, like
Reasons.
it's not a shame thing other than a shame for interacting with the thing that won't be named. And you can probably guess what that is at this stage.
I can, yeah, I put it together and yeah, understandable. Absolutely. Oh
Um,
God.
I'm glad that you mentioned that you do read fics, if not Game of Thrones, though.
Mhm.
Because if I can just get you to put yourself on blast here, what are your go-to tags when you look for fics to read? Please
Oh,
expose your darkest secrets.
such a hurt comfort bitch. I love it. And this
Oh,
should be,
really?
yeah, no one should be surprised about this because I like writing it. This is why my characters constantly suffers. I'm like, if they suffer, I get to do the comfort again, and that's great for me. Um, the more the suffering, the better the comfort. Just that's how it is. But yeah, so I'm very much. I love her comfort. Um, I love. It's like I enjoy in enemies to lovers a lot. Anything that's going to give me again slow burn, long dynamic, and I actually think in general that fan fiction does a better job of enemies to lovers dynamics than a lot of published fiction for a multitude of reasons. I think that fan fiction authors are less concerned with being problematic And because, it's like they're exploring something on the internet and they get to take their time with it. And they know that the people clicking on it are going to be people who are interested in that dynamic. And I think that kind of helps. Whereas people who are writing original fiction, I think so much more about optics when they're trying to get published. And therefore, a lot of times it involves them turning to the camera in the book and being like, don't worry, I know this seems toxic, but it's actually not. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. You don't need to you don't need to sell me on whether I'm okay with the toxic dynamic. I'm cool with it. So I
Ship
like it.
the monster with the delightful person. Just do it. Don't be a coward about it.
Just do it. Just do it. I will always go for a villain good guy ship. Every time. I'm good with it. I'm cool with it. I do not seek in my fiction what I would seek in my personal life for romantic connections. And I keep that very separate in my life. But I think fan fiction, because I think people who write fan fiction, they're a little bit more comfortable with like exploring weird niche things. So I like a good slow burn. I love a good slow burn pairing of something that I would never have considered before, because I think a good writer can sell you on almost any dynamic, if they have enough time and words and like, the setup is right. I think it can be really fun. So yeah, those are some of the tags.
Okay, let's test that. Hot pie and Euron Greyjoy. Go. Do it.
So our first problem with age gap's rough for sure. Oh my God. Because then you'd have to do so many. How would they even meet? How would we even have that happen?
Well, Euron's on his way to King's Landing to go and treat with Cersei.
Right.
He gets lost on the winding street to King's Landing.
Yeah,
ends up looking ends up getting a bowl of brown, and he meets, and it's love at first sight.
Yeah, it's love at first sight. I don't think Euron Greyjoy has ever experienced love at first sight in his whole life. That's not his. That's for him. That one's got to be. God, writing a redemption arc for Euron Greyjoy would be crazy, especially if we're going book Euron. That would be hard. It'd be so hard.
Oh my God. Honestly,
borderline impossible. Listen, I did redemption for Tywin Lannister, and that was tricky as fuck. That's hard. It's not. Do you know how hard it is to make that man acknowledge an emotion and take even an ounce of accountability? It's hard. It took a lot of effort.
Oh my God. And that's a guy who's even his atrocities are child's play compared to the book Crow's Eye. Let's play in that sandbox. How do we make him a good guy?
Yeah, people I remember were a little bit, it's like, it's too bad that the version of Euron in your fic is more show Euron. And I honestly was like, I don't have time to deal with book Euron. I'm going to be so honest with you. I need it to be show Euron because I don't have time and space for him right now. He's a lot.
Book Euron has a real problem of main character syndrome.
Yes, yeah. He's walking in like, I'm actually the main character now, and you're like, you're coming in late, man. We've been here for a while, and you're just now stepping in. But
yeah,
I'm
be Southern Endgame if you're good and quiet.
Yeah, exactly. God, there are some characters who are like, I can't give them a redemption. They're too much. Ramsay's another one. He's a lot. Yeah. I think it would be possible for someone to give Joffrey a redemption. I do actually believe that.
So do I, honestly. I feel like Joffrey is a victim of circumstance. If he had good father figures, he would have ended up more like Tommen.
Yes. And he is still a kid. That's the other thing we have to acknowledge. A lot of these other characters who are like grown adults, it's like Joffrey is very badly parroting the parental figures in his life and taking in messages and acting out in a certain way. And it's like, he's bad for sure, but there's definitely a version of him that if he had the better support and everything, you could do a redemption arc with him. It's very possible. 100%.
Absolutely. If nothing else, he's very smart, and he does have a mind for ruling.
Yes. And as we know, he loves the Targaryens because he's dropping the Targaryen lore in the show. Literally every time he's spoiling all of the Targaryen spin-offs in the show. And it's great.
Honestly, it's better than House of the Dragon.
Yeah. Yeah, and listen, and we should say it, and we should talk about it. Listen, I enjoyed season 1. I really did. Season 2.
Season 2 exists, and it's entertaining. If
It's
nothing else,
entertaining.
it is
I love
certainly
to see a
entertaining.
dragon. I love to see
I love the
dragons.
dragons. I love Oscar Tully.
Yeah,
Love Shirako Loha. I
yeah,
will never not be down to support Abigail Thorne. Like it definitely has its moments. It has the best dragon fight we've seen by far
yeah.
because
It
we
does,
actually got to see
absolutely.
it.
Yep. Yes. Big.
Yeah, just maybe around season 6 level, roughly.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny too. I would say in general on social media, I don't deal with a ton of hate comments. Like in general, I think my comment sections behave themselves. The most mean comments I've ever gotten have been when I've been like, I don't know if I like how they did House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon stands are crazy. They get really, really upset when you say, I don't know how I feel about this season of House of the Dragon, and they get a little bit aggressive. It's not too bad, but it's one of the only times that I've had like a take online and I've had people be like, how dare you, kind of thing. And I'm like, huh, it's interesting to me.
I've been finding that like late season show fans have been like that with me recently. Because like especially with like my Littlefinger video recently, where I tried to like make his final scene just flow a little better and work
Yeah.
with characterization. Damn if I didn't get my first ever death threat, which I mean, obviously concerning behavior, but like also I'm a little proud. I'm a little proud of myself that I was able to finally fucking earn that. That is not an endorsement for anyone watching this to start
Don't
doing
do death
them, but
threats.
like don't do death threats. But like, yay me, I made it.
Yeah, that's God. Here's the thing, though. I'm like, damn, over the Littlefinger storyline in season 7, who's
Uh-huh.
writing for
Uh-huh.
that? Who's writing for that scene? I thought we universally agreed that that plot line was really terribly handled. That was my
No, I mean,
understanding.
everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Yeah,
You're not entitled to send fucking death threats to people. Don't do
no,
that. But
no,
like,
yeah,
disagree with me if you like. Call my writing bad
yeah,
if you like. But speaking of
yeah,
writing and me feeling bad about it, I would love to pivot towards my newest hyperfixation and depression source, A Pride of
yeah.
Wolves.
Oh God.
So so A Pride of Wolves, for anyone who doesn't know, first of all, you should know, it's great. It is the sequel story to A Wolf Amongst Lions, following the next generation of lords and ladies in Westeros. And I guess my first question about it would be, who the hell do you think you are? How could you do this to me? And who gave you the right?
You know, I gave myself the right. I was blessed by some sort of divine inspiration to cause suffering to you and you specifically, obviously. And yeah, that's where we are.
You think that's fucking funny? Where the
I do.
story is right now, bringing up
I
divine blessings to cause pain,
know.
you monster.
Oh God, it's so funny. I truly, A Pride of Wolves has been like a white whale for me. It's because it's so much harder to write than A Wolf Amongst Lions, like miles harder to write than A Wolf Amongst Lions, for multiple reasons. One, it's not a focused POV story where I'm very specifically like where there's a very clear main character, and that's like the POV and story that I'm staying centered in, which was very easy. It's so many POVs. You've noticed there's frankly too many. I'm working with like a number of POVs that George R.R. Martin does, and I'm feeling a lot of sympathy and empathy for him at this current time because I'm like, yeah, man, this is rough. This is hard. This is a lot of characters to keep track of and journeys to keep track of. I have a document in my documents that is titled A Pride of Wolves, the Myronese Knot Outline out of yeah, out of sympathy to the fact that he's just like, I feel like I have like the Myronese knot. How do I unravel this? How do I get back to a point where everything is together, even though I obviously never go to Marine in this story. But so it's very challenging. but also very rewarding, because obviously getting people to care about your OCs in a fan fiction is always very great. Because, OCs are less liked, I think, in fan fiction overall. I think a lot of times you have to kind of trick people into liking them. Because I think when you just say it's like, oh, I'm writing an OC, a lot of people like make certain assumptions about what you're trying to do with that. So it's very you have to sell your character so much harder than when you're selling characters that people already have an emotional attachment to. So it requires like a lot of work on that front.
Heck yeah. As it happens, that was literally the next question that I had down. As you've managed to create an incredibly compelling and heart-wrenching story starring a cast of almost entirely original characters, I would love if you could go into a bit more depth as to, is there a trick to getting people invested into your OCs beyond like just straight up tricking them? Is there anything in particular that you do when like that you take consideration to do when you're first introducing them, or what was your process or your thoughting your thinking in going into this with a very OC heavy cast?
Yeah, I think with fan fiction especially, it's knowing where your characters sit in with the cast that already exists and making sure that they're occupying a niche of some sort that is not already filled by an existing character. Because my approach, I used to do a lot of OCs in my writing back in the day, back in the good old days of middle school and high school, where when you're a mentally unwell teenage girl, that's the best time to make OCs. Actually, the golden age of OCs. But I would only make an OC for something if there was not a character that fit what I wanted to do with the story. Because if there's an already existing character that you can take to do what you want to do with the story in fan fiction, you should take that character and kind of develop them for that. With The Wolf Amongst Lions, Arya is extremely like she fits so many like niches for me, and she also I think is a character I relate very deeply to and related to very deeply when I was like reading the books. So she was very easy for me to like make the centerpiece. But then with the OCs, like later on, because there's so many of them, it's almost helpful because they don't all have to be everything. They can fill very specific character archetypes, have very specific journeys, have their own flaws and, virtues and that kind of thing. So they all feel like very separate people and not like someone I've inserted into the story to fulfill some sort of like self-insert fantasy, which to be clear, and 100%, and I'm speaking to all of the young fan fiction writers out there in particular, especially for whatever reason you're like a 13-year-old girl. You should be able to write whatever self-insert OCs you want and don't let anybody stop you. You should be able to make the most overpowered, nonsense character. I don't care. You have fun. Don't let anybody dull your shine. You should be able to do that. So I have all of the love in the world for self-insert OCs and that kind of thing. Because I made a lot of them. But now it's like actually making like OCs that integrate in with the plot. It's like, how do they fit in this world? What is their journey? What is an arc that they're going to go on that is different from characters we've seen before? But also, how do they relate to characters that we've already seen before? Like, how are they echoes of these characters that have already passed? That's a big thing in Game of Thrones. It's like legacy. These are all children of like characters. So it's like, how similar are they to their parents? How are they different from their parents? And what journeys are they going on with that?
I think I've just realized something. I may be way off base. I've been off base with a lot of stuff, as you well know, because of my running
Yeah.
fucking commentary from reading through this. Is Marcus meant to be a reflection of Jaime's forbidden love?
Yeah. And he's also his oath thing,
Ah!
too.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah. It's a
Oh,
totally obviously a different forbidden love. And it's also Jamie's one of Jamie's obviously principal traumas being him swearing an oath very early. to the Mad King and being stuck in that. And so it was like, yeah. So Marcus is very much a reflection of Jaime, even though he has many, traits from other characters as well. Yeah, very much relating to Jaime.
Oh, amazing. And for guessing that, do I get the reward of you taking the Doomed out of the Yowie?
I'm so sorry.
Please.
You got so much more doom to happen in the Yowie. There's just, oh man. I'm so glad I
No.
didn't latch onto that couple, but also I'm very like I'm like God, that's rough for you because I truly have just so much torment still left to
I
ride.
will sacrifice any of the
Like,
other characters. If the entire
yeah,
world burns and it's just those two left in
that's
the ashes, that will be
that's
worth
rough.
it.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see. I know what their ending is. I know what all the characters' endings are. They're already planned. It's all there.
Do you have any I guess like not cheats, but like do you have anything in mind for that you're working on for your Miranese knot that like is a bit, I don't know how to word it, narratively convenient in a way that is consistent with how books are written, I guess. Not like the kind of narrative convenience that you would see in books, I guess.
Right. Yeah. My Miranese knot is really like, it's really important to outline all of the stories separately before you figure out how you're distributing them amongst each other. Because in order to really figure it out, it's like, okay, I have this plot happening with these characters in this location. Who are all the characters involved? This is literally how the Miranese outline is structured. Is I have location, characters that are involved, which characters are the point of views within that. And then I have like a list of the basic events that are happening, and then I also bold or underline events that are significant to other storylines. Because at some point, some of these cross over. So you have to know at what point certain stuff has to happen for other plots to be able to continue. So it's like it's kind of the ordering thing of like this is an important like linchpin. It affects something somewhere else. Um, so having all those separately and having them outlined separately then means that when I'm going to write a chapter and I'm trying to think, okay, what point of views am I putting in this chapter? I'm both looking for who haven't I done a point of view of recently sometimes will be a thing. But then also I'll look at kind of where I am in each plot and be like, what point of views make sense to kind of put together within this chapter to make it like a consistent reading experience. So I change my mind on that constantly. Which POVs I put in chapters, that's a week to week thing. Every week I'm like, which ones am I writing this week? And I kind of select from my little Miranese knot outline. But there'll be there'll be certain storylines where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing with this one. I know where I want it to end up, but I don't know the process and I have to figure it out. And I always figure it out, I always get to it eventually, because I work well under pressure, but it's definitely, it can be stressful at times for sure.
That sounds like a really interesting and helpful way to deal with such a difficult and overlapping story structure. If there were any published authors that needed some help figuring out what to do with their long-running stories, perhaps that might be some good feedback for them, because I would like to see this book before I die. Um, you know,
Oh my God. Yeah. I listen. It's like I definitely get it because like as much as I joke, it's like I'm in my own Miranese outline, not outline. I still don't have near as many characters or things as he's spread himself out with. He's got so many that he's done, and again, it's like that's part of the thing of being a gardener is you plant seeds that end up growing a lot more than you think they are, and now they're overwhelming the garden, and you have to deal with that. So I think that definitely I get why it's hard. I am blessed to be writing fan fiction and not have the entire world caring about what I do with my plot, which is great. I have a
absolutely.
lot of people caring, but not as many. For sure.
Yeah. And to be clear, that was the only joke I'm going to be making at George's expense.
Yeah.
This is a pro George
Pro George.
channel. This is a pro George podcast.
Yes.
Take all the time you need. I understand. We get it.
We under-
We're with
I,
you. Do you want a back rub? Do you want us to bring you lunch? What will help you? Just be
whatever you need.
comfortable. We don't want to put any
Absolutely.
pressure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
What
I
I
get
have
it.
I have genuinely written a letter that I wanted to send to the king, to put George up in a palace, make him as comfortable as possible, give him
Yes.
all the resources and support that he needs, just so long as he finishes the book.
Yep.
Because if nothing else, I feel like that's a great optic for the royal family in Britain, who, let's be honest, they need that shit right now.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. I think that would be great. And yeah, just get as comfortable as possible, whatever he needs. Yeah, listen, I would love to see how the series ends. And I also do think I've made peace with being like, whatever happens, happens. It's like, if I get it, awesome, great. I'll be very happy with it. And if not, um, that's how it goes. That's life. I'm very like, very very pro author in like understanding it's like how difficult it is. And when you've created like such a massive world and phenomenal, because it's so phenomenally detailed. Because I've talked before about the Song of Ice and Fire wiki, which obviously has other contributors, who are actually putting, but it's like the information comes from George writing a lot of this stuff in his world books. There has never been a corner of the world that I have needed to use for my fan fiction that has not been somewhat explored. There's nothing underdeveloped in the way that I'm like, oh, he didn't really answer this question. I'm like, they're all out there, the answers, and it makes writing fan fiction for his world so great and easy in a way, because so often I'll be like, can I do something like this? And I'll look it up and be like, oh yeah, that's super consistent with something that he's already put in there. And this like a paragraph he wrote in a world book forever ago.
Absolutely. I think it helps that he's at a stage now where he's writing fan fiction for his own work. Like, what
Yeah.
is Duncan Egg? What is House of the Dragon? The
Yeah.
stage play, all of this. Like, yes,
Yeah.
it's the stuff, it's the
Mhm.
story. But it's, he's playing around in his own world as a
Yeah.
sandbox. And
Yes.
with that, that necessitates us getting the resources that we need to write our stupid fun stories.
And it's great. And I am such a proponent of writing fan fiction for your own story. I do it all the time. 'Cause I read a lot of original fiction in addition to like fan fiction and everything. And I love having my canon and then being like, and what if I wrote this? If I, get my stuff published again, I will have a secret account that I'm publishing fan fiction under. It'll happen. I'll do it. I won't let anybody know what it is, because I'm like, fan fiction, it's like fandom spaces and everything are sacred. And I don't think people should be aware of an author's presence within a fandom. I think that chokes that kind of thing. But I'll post stuff for sure. I'll a secret account.
And that brings us very, very cleanly to what I wanted to talk about next, the relationship between fan fiction and original work, and its publication.
Yeah.
Because, especially recently, you have gone on record as being very strongly against attempts to monetize fan fiction. With recent news that the author of a fan fiction that will not be named has begun attempts to publish their work, you have been outspoken against that.
Yeah.
I do not disagree, to be clear, but can you expand on why you hold that position?
Yeah, I'd love to. Because the thing is, like, filing the serial numbers off, which for those who don't know is basically a term for trying to make a fan fiction into an original work. You're filing all the distinguishable features that made it fan fiction off and then publishing it as something original. This has been happening forever, right? This is something that has happened a long time. It's not new in fandom, but it's more the types of works that have been starting to be adapted, and then also how they have been marketed, which is a lot of how the problem comes. People who used to scrub the serial numbers off of fan fiction and publishing them, they were not advertising that it used to be fan fiction. It was in fact like something that you really tried to hide, to the point that they would usually the original fan fiction ends up getting deleted, so there's not even record of it on the internet. And then also a lot of times these things were pretty heavily alternate universe stuff, where it's like this is barely related to the original IP. You mostly just took the characters and put them into like a different set of circumstances. So it's like, yeah, it's scrubbing the serial numbers off. It's still, I would still maybe prefer that you just write something original, but it's not the worst thing in the world, especially if you are actually going to the effort to like develop the characters separately and make it distinctly different. That's fine. And likewise too, it's like there's a lot of fanfiction authors who make the jump to published authors and just write original fiction, and like you can see the roots of their fan fiction, the fact that they're going to deal with similar tropes, they're going to deal with similar character archetypes. A lot of the stuff that I write in my fan fiction, if people ever read my original fiction, you'll see some of the same themes and stuff come up because those are just themes that I really like and characters that I really like, that kind of thing. But it is the saying this fan fiction is going to be published. It was a fan fiction. It was popular. We are working off of the base they have gotten on that fan fiction. We are advertising it as a fanfic of the IP that must not be named because it's always from the IP that must not be named these days. And we as a publisher are preying on that because we want somebody who already has a following and a writing following, and we see a profit to be made here. And so we are making these offers. So it's like the writers themselves, it's like this is not a situation of the writer being like, I'm going to scrub the serial numbers. I'm going to write something original that's very based on my fan fiction. I'm going to just try to get in the query trenches and get it published. It is a writer saying it's like, I am a popular fan fiction writer and I want to publish this thing that's already popular. And that gets into some very shaky legal ground. I think it sets a bad precedent. And people are obviously worried about whether or not it will ever get to the point where fan fiction gets taken to court at some point, if it becomes like a rampant problem. And also, you know, from a totally non-moralistic standpoint, I think that part of what makes fan fiction great is that it is a hobby and an art that people engage in just because they love it and they are not trying to monetize it. Like, obviously, artists, you know, deserve to be paid for their work. Writers deserve to be paid for their work. I'm very pro that. But I also do think it's extremely valuable to have hobbies that are purely for a love of the game and not for monetary gain, that are about community. And I don't think that the only way to make writing legitimate is to have it make money, you know? So that's my soapbox.
Yeah,
I talked for a while.
That's what we're here for. Like, it's really, like you say, it's a really legally dicey question, and it's a really interesting conversation to have because you're absolutely right. Where's the line between supporting artists and keeping fandom accessible for people?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about you call it filing off the serial numbers. I call it the E.L. James method.
Yep.
If that was something you would ever consider doing in any form for wolves or lions, not necessarily taking everything and like just changing the names, but if you would take the structure of what you wrote and rework.
Yeah, so the answer, it's definitely no, especially for A Wolf Amongst Lions. The thing about A Wolf Amongst Lions, and I think this is the case with a lot of very good fan fiction, it would be impossible for me to file the serial numbers off. It's so deeply entrenched in the Game of Thrones world, and it's so based off of the customs and the character. It's like filing the serial numbers off at a certain point would mean making it a totally different story. And I'm so proud of A Wolf Amongst Lions, of how it stands right now, that I don't think I could improve upon it by making it original. I'm like, it's like, I'm very proud of the work as it stands, even though it didn't make any money. I think that it is like one of the best things that I've ever written, you know, fan fiction or original fiction. It's something that I continue to be very proud of. That being said, would I ever work with the themes that I deal with in A Wolf Amongst Lions? Unequivocally, yes. There will undoubtedly be a time where I publish fantasy fiction that has very similar dynamics, because like there's a lot of things in it that I just love working with. Like enemy families being forced into a situation where they have to work together for whatever reason because of circumstances. I love working with that. Again, I talked before about how I really love a reluctant adoptive parent-child dynamic where neither of the two want to be there. There are a lot in my original fiction. You will find a lot of bad dads, a lot of them. I love writing with them. I love making them. There's a reason why I was drawn to write for Tywin. It's not, it didn't start there. I went there beforehand. I enjoy writing a really complicated parent figure. So it's like there are things within my original fiction that I think people who love my fan fiction would also enjoy in my original fiction, because a lot of the same, a lot of the OCs I'm working with, the Pride of Wolves and Pride of Wolves. Those are archetypes that I obviously like to work with. There are probably similar OCs that I have in my fiction. But yeah, so it would never be a one-to-one, but I would write things that have similar themes, but I would start from a very different standpoint. I wouldn't start from a, how do I change this and file the serial numbers off? I would start from a storyline, basically, in a different character and a different set of circumstances, and I'd build it from the ground up as opposed to trying to fix stuff around until it makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, I love that. Love that. In your initial description of everything, you mentioned that one of the things that the Nameless is doing is attempting to mobilize or weaponize their existing fan base. Is that something that, were you to publish something completely as unrelated to your existing fan fiction work as possible, would you attempt to mobilize your existing fan base in publishing descriptions of something like, hey, I can pop this at the bottom of my posts on AO3 to be like, hey, I'm publishing a book, come check it out if you like my writing? Is that something that you would do? Is that something that you would approve of? Is that something that you think should be shied away from?
No, I think that's fine. That's the line where it's like, I think fan fiction writers who have built a base of people who appreciate their work and love their work, who are making totally original fiction where it's like, hey, I'm writing something separate. If you have enjoyed my work so far and you want to support me, then you can do that. I think that's just as valuable as mobilizing, say, a TikTok following or something like that, right? Fan fiction, in a way, there is a form of social media to that, where it's like, I built a community. This is a community I'm in touch with. Now, you don't want to advertise it on Archive of Our Own because they have very, very strict rules around monetization or links to any form of income, even if it's nothing to do with fan fiction. You can't be popping like Ko-fi links or Patreon links or links to an Amazon page. You cannot monetize fan fiction. However, I do a lot of times on, my Archive of Our Own, I'll tell people to follow me on Tumblr or follow me on TikTok or something like that. My other social media, and if I were to post on my other social media about something I'm doing, that's fine, because I'm not using Archive of Our Own as the base for that. I can definitely talk on Archive of Our Own. It's like, I'm getting published soon, that kind of thing, and just speak about it and be like, if you want more information, you can go to my Tumblr or something like that, because then there's no money situation happening there. But yeah, so it's like, I think that it's fully legitimate for fan fiction writers who also want to publish original fiction to ask their fan base to buy their stuff. I think that fan fiction writers often can be as talented as original fiction writers too, especially if they understand the difference between writing the two. And I think as long as you're being respectful of the difference between the two mediums, that it's totally fine. And also, I think that if fan fiction readers were more willing to follow writers they liked to their original fiction, we'd have less of a situation of fan fiction writers scrubbing the serial numbers off because they don't think that their fan bases will care about anything but the IP that they already care about. So,
hell yeah. And you mentioned something in there that I find quite interesting. So I wanted to ask, because I have had this thought in the middle of the night when I can't sleep, dreaming of a world that does not exist where I am a successful creative type, and say making a TV show adaptation of a book series that I've written that's incredibly popular and has tens of thousands of fanfictions of it. You know, the world that every reasonable and sane person thinks about in the middle of the night.
I think
Um,
about it all the time.
and of course, naturally, and one of the things that I imagine doing is having a non-canon anthology series as part of what's officially published,
Hmm.
which is a an adaptation of popular fan fictions in that fandom space, giving those
Hmm.
people, you know, credit and remuneration for their work and making it, like I say, not canon but official work that they can use as a springboard
Yeah.
into the industry. Is
Hmm.
that something that you think is a good idea? Is that something that should be shied away from? Would it change too much? And I guess as a follow along from that, what would be your idea of a perfect marriage between fan fiction and official literature?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because there have been authors who have brought in other people to contribute to their universes. One of the first ones I think of is Rick Riordan. Rick Riordan, the Percy Jackson series, he brought in a different author to do the story for Nico D'Angelo. Because Nico is a gay character, and Rick Riordan's like, I'm not gay. I'm going to bring in an author who is gay to write this story. Very much making that deal with them and working together in order to make that story. Rick is also, I know, has his publishing arm has given a lot of deals to people to write mythologized stories of their own culture's mythology that he would not feel comfortable tackling because it's not his
Yeah,
culture. So bringing in
there's
other
the
let's
Rick
talk
Riordan
about.
presents.
Yes, Rick Riordan presents, exactly. Where it's that's stuff that's not necessarily canon to the Percy Jackson universe, but it is very much I'm supporting other voices that are not like my own and everything, which I think is really lovely. And then I also think about comic books, for instance. Comics are kind of a zone where fan fiction is just an accepted thing. Not, I mean, you have to be official, but there's so many alternate universes in comics. There's almost no one accepted canon because there are just a bunch of different versions of particular popular characters. So it's another case where it's different authors can be given the same IP to give their own take on it, and everybody gets paid in different ways through that. So I do think that there is opportunity in the future to have, it would have to be probably an author who's very successful and has something really big to be hey, I want to open up, to other takes of this. It would have to be an agreement with the author, the publisher, and obviously the writers. And yeah, it's I don't think this because there's a lot of deals too for people do novelizations of movies and stuff like that. That tends to be very common. Uh, I know Disney will do a lot of IP deals with people to do official kind of connected stories and that kind of thing. So there's definitely a precedent for um having fan interpretations of it. It's honestly just a matter of making it very legally above board and having everybody who is involved understand and, be cool with who's getting profit from it, basically. And I think that's the problem right now with a lot of filing the serial numbers off in fan fiction is we don't know who knows what's happening and who's making the deals and who's okay with it. It's very under the table right now, which is what puts it in that very legal gray area.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the name list that it's happening with now, you know,
Mhm.
right now I'm avoiding that because I don't know what the logistics and legality of that is going to be. If we can find out that this has been signed off by the original author, then I'll know that I can boycott for moral reasons.
Yes, yes, 100%. And that's the thing is you always have to wonder if this is happening, if it is very obviously being marketed as fan fiction for this IP, and the author is not suing about it. Why? Why isn't she suing about it? Because it must be because there is a benefit to her not suing about it, whether that is a monetary benefit or just a keeping her IP in the cultural consciousness benefit. Hard to say which one, but it is one of those things where I'm like, because it hasn't been stated, I don't feel comfortable consuming those published works because I don't know for sure that no money has changed hands, basically.
Absolutely, yeah. And this is the sort of thing that I feel like I could talk about for days. This is because there's so many possible ways to look at it. Like, are the final few seasons of Game of Thrones technically fan fiction?
Yeah.
Are network shows that take existing concepts. Like, is Riverdale fan fiction? Is Once Upon a Time fan fiction? I mean, Once Upon a Time, obviously, second greatest show ever made, but like, are these not just official fanfics of existing works? And would there potentially be a place for a fanfic author in a writer's room not to contribute, but just to be like, hey, actually, that is not super in keeping with what was actually meant to happen. If we do this instead, then that feels more like what the original author was intending for, like an adaptational consultant or something. But yeah, we could go on forever and ever and ever about
Forever
this.
and ever. Yeah, for sure.
I
There's
might
so
I
many
might talk your ear off about this at some point. But for now, we get to the bit that I've been looking forward to most. The namesake of the podcast. We're about to get really angry. So before we got on here, I asked you to think of a nerdy topic for us to have a fake, clippable argument over.
Yes.
Whatever you say, I will take the opposite position. Just like in a contested role on Dimension 20's Adventuring Party, but it does not need to be D&D. It can be an opinion about anything that you enjoy, as long as I know about it, or an in-universe argument about a character. Whatever vibe you want to go for, I will match. I will double the intensity, and hopefully
Right.
it'll go viral. So,
Yes, perfect.
so whenever you're ready, if you just want to let me know what we are going to be arguing over, and we can get going here.
Absolutely. I need you to know that as soon as you gave me this like prompt and this idea, my number one temptation was to make you argue in favor of Tywin as a character. And then I was going to take the negative thing.
I had a feeling you might do that.
Just because I want to see if you can do it. But then also, I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I think that, that might be mean of me. That might be rude of me, to do. And I also.
You're no stranger to causing me pain.
No, it's true. I do enjoy causing pain. But I think, I need to decide what I want to do. There's the funny option, and then there's the option that might actually get me a lot of haters because it is my held opinion. As opposed to like a funny fake argument. Because I don't care about Stannis even a little bit.
You're fucking kidding.
I don't care about him even a little bit, and that's legitimate and 100%.
Oh my god! This is like the Game of Thrones equivalent of I did not care for the Godfather. Are you insane?
No, I truly and really don't, and I can justify why. I do promise. I feel like I
love
should
to see you try.
I want you to argue from your heart of hearts, so I'm going to do this. First of all, I'm going to get my disclaimers out of the way. It's fine. I get why people like Stannis and care about Stannis. If you like Stannis, that's your journey, and I love that for you. First of all, we gotta keep in mind that I watched the show first, and it took so long for his face to even stick in my head. Every time we cut back to him, I'm like, who is he? What's happening? Who is this guy? And why do I care about him? I simply didn't care. Found out very quickly as I was getting involved with fandom that a lot of people are super diehard for him being the rightful king. They are like, Stannis the Manus, he should be on the throne, number one guy. And truly, I was like, really? Him? Right, this is the guy that we're writing for. So I'm not super interested in his plot lines. Love Davos. Davos is great. Love him. If Davos didn't exist, I don't even know if the Stannis plots would stick in my mind even at all. But I don't like characters who believe that the law should be followed above all else always with no gray areas, or emotional like factor to it, where it's just like the law is the law, it has to be followed, this is honor, that kind of thing, and there's no gray area for that, because even Ned Stark occasionally had a gray area emotionally, you know. Stannis very much was very like, we're not doing a gray area, it always has to be that. I'm not a fan of those types of characters.
If I could challenge that,
Yes, please come in.
I think that there is an element of propaganda in universe that you've fallen for there, because Stannis, yes, he is absolutely a just to a fault character, and that's one of the things I love about him, is that he's very ride or die for how things should be. However, his insistence that the Iron Throne is his by rights and therefore it should be his, I have always read that as a smokescreen, and he does fucking want to be the king, because why would you not want to be the king if you've been told you're going to be the king all this time? Beyond that, there are so many instances where Stannis knows what the lawful thing to do is and does not do it. The lawful thing to do would have been to face Renly in the field. He didn't do that. He had Renly killed with a shadow baby that looked just like him. The lawful thing to do would have been to punish all of those Stormlords who sided with Renly. He didn't do that. He forgave them and he took them back in. Like that the law states that Davos should have been punished a lot more severely than losing his finger bones.
Yes. Yeah.
Like a lifetime of smuggling. All Stannis has ever done is compromise. And this is a huge thing that I really dislike about the main critiques of Stannis, is that he compromises all the fucking time. It's the only thing he does. His entire life is compromise.
Yeah, and that's fair. And I'll raise you then to the, you know, back on that, is that I think I have a natural aversion to when a character says a particular ideal. It's like, this is my ideal, this is the one that I follow, and that their actions do constantly contradict it, because there's a lot of hypocrisy there. And it's particularly with characters. This is the thing, because Tywin's a hypocrite. I'm not going to say he's not a hypocrite. Huge hypocrite. The narrative is very much acknowledging, obviously, that he's a hypocrite, and also basically every fan knows that he's a hypocrite, right? Whereas Stannis is much more beloved unequivocally in the fandom. And this will always like contradict with me. It's like, if a character is loved in the fandom and I also find them to be very hypocritical, then I have more of an issue than if than a character is hypocritical and the fandom acknowledges them to be bad, you know? There's like that disconnect there. And also I do think too, it does come from we'll say that I'm more of a Daenerys Targaryen supporter, in general, as far as like ending up on the throne. I know I am, but it's one of those, like, I understand that she might obviously end up, ending the way that she does in the show. I'm not disputing that or anything. I think it's entirely likely. I'm just going to be more interested in the female characters going for the throne in the really misogynistic Westeros society, you know? And Stannis, I think, is just such, to me, feels like such a product of the society and feels like such the, like, kind of uninteresting answer. And then if he goes the direction in the show with Shireen, then he's dead to me. Just super dead to me. There's no... because this thing is, like, I find him boring. I'm not that interested in him. I don't know if he's going to go the direction he does in the show. If he does, and I feel like that one is probably going to happen, fuck him. I can't forgive him for the Shireen thing. I love Shireen. I adore Shireen. I also am not a big religious zealot person, and I'm not a big person believes that they are a prophesized savior person, which is probably very clear from the fanfiction that I write. So there's a lot of elements of his character that make me not primed to like him. I understand that he's complex, and I understand why people enjoy him, but I'm like, I just don't care.
I see that. I'm going to work backwards a bit. On the religious zealotry thing,
Yes.
I think that's an adaptation failed by the show. In the book, it's made very clear that he is not into this. He is not into the whole rule. He knows that Melisandre has power, and he's using her for that. But like the Proudwing story is, in my opinion, one of the most interesting pieces of characterization in the early books. Like in my opinion, it's the best bit of characterization before Feast. I love it so much. It sums up everything about Stannis. And I love that it makes it very clear that he is not a zealot. because I do have to take the opposite from what you've said, on the Shireen-ification of it all, have you considered that kids are terrible?
Yeah, have you considered that young girls are constantly victims in Westeros? And it's like, wow, we're just killing another girl to making way for a man, killing a girl because girls aren't as important. I see.
Well, yeah, you understand. Oh, that's terrible. Oh God, this is a nightmare. You got to bring up the Shireen of it all.
I
Oh,
had to. That is the most. This is the thing. The one trait that I found redeeming about Stannis, and again, this should be so. This is so evident from everything about me. Is I was like, well, at least he loves his daughter. He does. He loves his daughter. Cares about his daughter. He makes active time to engage with his daughter, even though his daughter should bring shame to him, quote unquote, because she's his only living daughter and she is like the grayscale, everything like that. But he still shows up and cares about his daughter. That is a redeeming feature that would have been like, okay, I like this part of you. And if he had refused to sacrifice or anything like that, there's a really good chance that I could have been like, yes, absolutely, 100%. But unfortunately, he does
well,
not. And that,
is there not is there not an element of this as an avid author of agonizingly painful relationship developments?
yeah,
The idea of Stannis devolving, starting off
yeah,
as this just and painfully moral character who does
yeah.
things because they are the right thing to do, becoming
Mm-hmm.
more desperate and devolving into someone who wants to take the throne for the sake of taking the throne to the point where nothing else matters. Is there not an element of tragedy there that he gets to the point of I need this more than anything, more than I need my daughter? And is that
Yeah.
not going to be one of the most beautifully tear-jerking things you'll ever read in your life? Speaking
I
of
mean,
people being
listen.
hypocrites.
Yeah. Listen, will I be sad? I love a tragedy, and I agree with you. I think the show fumbled Stannis horribly. This is probably part of the problem with me and Stannis is that I was introduced to him from the show. I basically watched his entire plot line in the show before I ever read him in the books. So I think I was kind of primed to be like whatever when I read the books. I do think that there are more interesting scenes of him in the books than there is in the show. Um, the way that the show does it, basically none of his scenes matter or have impact at all. There's almost nothing ends up meaning anything from Stannis's plotline in the show, unfortunately. And I do obviously think that in the book there's a more lasting impact to be found with him in everything. But yeah, I love a tragedy. I love a good devolving into that. But then I raise you, why is that?
Well, who's the alternative? Joffrey? Joffrey with Cersei and Tywin as his role models? Renly, the guy who got fucking honeypotted by a twink in armor and is being manipulated by the also-rans of Westeros for the last 20 fucking years? That is,
Yeah.
out of the legitimate heirs, is the only reasonable option who isn't nuking her way to the top.
I mean, listen, Daenerys is that. I mean, listen. So you like slavery? That's what you're saying. That's what I hear you saying. We're pro. Get over here.
Oh, it's gonna fucking throw me out for ages.
Oh God.
Oh, oh my God. I think for that alone you win that. Holy shit.
Oh my God. Very, very
Oh my
legitimate.
God.
It's like I'm very like I would love for them to get to a position eventually in Westeros and Game of Thrones where we're no longer doing full absolute monarchy because I don't think there's any good option for the throne. I think that Game of Thrones shows that time and time again with the history of Westeros and everything that it's like sometimes you get a good ruler and then sometimes it sucks and it really is like a flip of a coin because it's not a great governmental system. So it's like I'm more in favor of an eventual. I know that it's not necessarily going to be like by the end, like whatever they did in the show, which was very stupid. They're like, we're just doing oligarchy now, and I'm like, okay, That's not that much better. But moving away from a system that is just whoever's the next in line for the throne, I think that the books show that that's a system that gets a lot of people killed and a lot of people destroyed. Even if you are a just person or a good-hearted person who is freeing slaves, I don't know what he's going to do with Daenerys in the books. I don't know. I'm so curious to see where she ends up, and in general. But
My theory is that she's Azor Ahai and that Revived Jon is going to be Nissa Nissa.
Yeah. I can definitely see that happening because I'm not a pro Jon on the throne either. I think the whole idea of like it's people who don't want power are the people who should have. I'm like, no, that's stupid. That's a dumb. I don't think that's good. But yeah, it's like they
People
kind
who
of
don't want
changed
power
the
for its
government
own
system.
sake, Varys, come on.
Yeah, no, it's very silly. But it's like I think Daenerys, this is the reason. I think Daenerys is the person who would be most likely to, barring obviously a tragic end, to be willing to break the system of the absolute monarchy in Westeros just because she's already shown herself to want to break the system of slavery, which is not serfdom and the small folk in Westeros are not treated great either. And I feel like she would be somebody who would want to break that system. It would be hard and she would probably like die for it. It would be a multi-generation like thing. But I feel like that she would be a person who would be trying to like push that basically.
Yeah. And if you're going for someone with radical change, absolutely Daenerys is there. If you're looking for someone who can make the best out of the existing situation, I am genuinely Stannis all the way. I think he's the only one who'd be able to actually like win by not playing the game. But if you are going to go for a different kind of system, might I suggest an anarcho-syndicalist commune where we take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week, but all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting. I could do this literally for the entire movie. I'm not going to go into a Monty Python rabbit hole.
Absolutely. I love the proposal. They gotta try something else, man. They gotta. It's bad. Yeah.
At a certain stage, just put Hot Pie on the throne.
Just put Hot Pie on the throne. Just get him up there. I think he'd
Get
be
someone
good.
who's wise enough to know that she's a knight because she's wearing armor.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got that. I don't
Smartest
think
man in
enough
Westeros.
people. Yeah, no, and I do agree with you that with the other options besides Daenerys, Stannis is the most stable. Like, yeah,
You can say
Joffrey stuff.
probably least bad.
Yeah, at least bad. None of the options are good. So it's like definitely least bad. So yeah, I mean, like I think it would be fun, but I'm pro women. So I
Women are in fact Pog, and you can quote me on
amazing, and I will.
that. Amazing. Well, thank you for getting really angry with me, but that was a lot of fun. I have fun. I will have fun trying to find the bit in there that's gonna get us both cancelled the quickest.
Yeah, it's both canceled. Yeah, I truly was like, do I bring this up? Because I know that a lot of people ride really hard for Stannis, and I've always felt bad that I just couldn't care about him. I'm like, whoops. Yeah.
I do love him. I won't pretend like a lot of what I love about him isn't the memes, but like
The memes are
it's a
fine.
fun character. But I
Yeah.
fully get where you're coming from. He's
Yeah.
especially in the show, he's little more than like a roadblock for Jon at the end.
Yeah, I just don't feel like they gave a lot of oomph to his scenes. It felt like the showrunners didn't really care about him at all. And I think when you can feel that, it's just, yeah, I think, and they probably should have cared about him a little bit more. There's a lot of people that you can always tell when they didn't care about someone because, we know they didn't care about Bran and they made his scenes deeply boring most of the time, when they shouldn't have been at all. Um, yeah.
This close to greatness. This fucking close if they just made him say, by the way, I'm Bloodraven.
Yeah. It's like, anyway, this has been a whole plot the whole time. Bran's gone and I'm Bloodraven now. Yeah.
I mean, who has a better story, you know?
God, Bran,
I feel like
it's so interesting because Bran has really great chapters in the books. He really does. And his POV is very interesting. And the showrunners, I think, hate him, which is crazy because he still ends up on the throne. But
why would you not just not go along with the notes at that stage? Like, put Jon
yeah,
on the throne like you obviously want to do.
yeah. Just throw
Yeah.
Jon. Listen, I don't want Jon on the throne because I think it's cliche and boring. But like, sure, at that point, Bran was just so out of left field that I remember when like leaks happened and that was like the spoiler. Everyone was like, "That's stupid." So the leaks can't possibly be true. And then they were. All the leaks were true, and it was bad. So
Unfortunately, but we ball, we
we've all,
continue, and we live in a world where Bran the Broken is king because he had the
yep,
best story.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
we are coming somewhat to the tail end of this experience today. I have a quick fire round, 10 very quick questions for you.
okay.
So we'll see how this goes with I think the 19-second delay on our recording system here. But let's see how this goes. First thought, don't put too much thought into it. Three, two, one. Favorite Game of Thrones character not named Tywin?
Jamie,
Heck yeah. Favorite location in Game of Thrones?
Harrenhal.
Favorite Valyrian steel item?
Ooh, cat's paw dagger.
Favorite fan theory?
Oh man. I I love all of the theories pertaining to like where the cannibal ended up. The cannibal dragon is really fun for me.
Mm.
And the idea that
Yes, I
he's maybe
love the
still
cannibal.
around.
Yes. Favorite thing other than A Song of Ice and Fire?
Oh, duh, blue screen. Full Metal Alchemist.
Ooh, heck yeah. Favorite season in all the Game of Thrones shows?
Uh, season 3.
Ooh, nice. Mine is one of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Favorite musician?
Favorite musician is Florence and the Machine.
Nice. Favorite D&D class?
Um, I'm a GM, so I play so many of them, but I'm gonna go with cleric.
Do you prefer playing or GMing?
GMing.
And do you prefer by the book or homebrew campaign?
Homebrew all the way.
Heck, yes, love it. I don't think I've ever opened a book in my entire life. But that
No.
is there's the quick fire round. I do so much homebrew. None of it's good, but it's all stupid and fun, and that's what D&D's all about at the end of the day.
Homebrew is easier. I am not going to remember details if I have to read them out of a book. I will remember details if I make them up. That's a huge thing for like my memory and everything. If I made them up from scratch, then it will stick in my brain as opposed to reading it. It's much harder.
Absolutely. Fake information is always so much easier to remember than real information.
Yes, absolutely. And just being able to make something up on the fly. If you made up the campaign, you're not worried about throwing something off in a module. You're like, oops, now everything is off. I'm like, I make it up. I can figure it out.
The awesome power of yes-anding. Absolutely. Well, that is the last of what I had prepared. Thank you so, so much for your time today. However much time you want at the end of all of this, please let the wonderful people here know about any upcoming projects you have, anything you want to brag about, anything you want to send people towards. The stage is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can obviously follow me on TikTok. I'm there as Aimee, and I guess I think it's Kallypso Writes on TikTok. I always get confused about how to look up things on TikTok. But I'm there in a lot of comment sections. You can find me in Kid in the North's comment sections a lot, and also in some of your TikToks. And then obviously I am Kallypso Writes on Tumblr and also on Archive of Our Own. And I am still actively updating A Pride of Wolves, which is the sequel to A Wolf Amongst Lions. And that is very exciting. And yeah, I have a lot of other creative projects in the works, but none that are immediately being released. I'm working on an actual play with some friends right now that will be Dark Academia Magical University in America. So yeah, and that hopefully will be coming out at the beginning of 2027. But we're recording ahead of time for that, and I'm very, very excited about that one. And I'm working on rewriting my Clockwork Gods Chronicles to release it so that it wasn't written by a 17-year-old. And it's self-published, so I'll see where that goes. But you can find all updates about that if you follow me on TikTok, because I'll definitely talk about that as we get closer to those dates.
Fantastic. That is incredible. Thank you, Aimee, so much for being here. Kallypso writes on TikTok. All of her links will be included in the description of this video here. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you, everyone, for taking the time to be here with us today. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and I hope to see you again on a future episode. See you around, everyone.
Bye.